Hi, I'm Tammy Beilstein. Welcome to Tammy's Window on Calaveras. Today I have sitting next to me Linda Clark, who you all might recognize, remember as Hardluck Lin. She is so fun, she's very smart, and she looks adorable. So that's a triple threat, right? And Linda is here to talk to us as herself about what it's like to be Hardluck Lin. We've got to get to a book that she's written at some point, so look forward to that. She's going to tell us about her costume, about all of it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy to have you again. We filmed a show years ago, and I still remember it. And seriously, that's a big deal, because sometimes I will film a show a month later. I'm like, really? I don't think I've ever met that person before. And it's horrible.
Well, Hardluck's memorable, huh?
Oh, you are. You are. So for people who didn't get to see that show a while back or don't know who you are, tell them about yourself and about your character here.
I'm a farmer's daughter from Minnesota. Came out here to teach school in the 70s. Now you all know how old I am. And then went into law enforcement and met my husband, and we ended up moving up to the Twainhart area once we would both had been retired. And I started working with living history programs. We call it edutainment because it's a means of entertaining the people, but also educating them about the California Gold Rush.
I love that edutainment. That's a neat word. And that's the sort of thing, as a kid, I would remember when we had people come and talk to us as any sort of character. Even if we watched a movie on a subject, I remembered it so much better than if I read it in a book.
Absolutely.
You bring it to life. That's awesome.
You bring it to life, and it's a way of well, when I was teaching, I used to plaster my room full of all kinds of posters and things that I wanted the students to know, and places that I wanted to go with the discussion that day. Yeah. And they would try to get me off track, not realizing that that's what I had planted for them to do. And now you get into the meat of what you really want to say. Right. And by doing this, I'm able to present California Gold Rush history to the kids, which is very exciting. That's a lot of fun.
Do you do it just with kids in Calaveras County, or do you go outside of the county?
Kind of have boots will travel. Yeah. I go to Tuolumne. I'm in Danville. I do a lot of camps. I do up here. I don't advertise. It's just word of mouth, and I get as busy as ever I want to be.
Wow.
And I do a lot of adult programs also, and adult and children programs together, combined.
No, I'm just curious. It's probably none of my business, but do you get paid to do this, like a stipend?
Not as much as I should.
You should. What you're doing is so important.
Well, a lot of our schools can't afford to pay. I mean, let's face it, they're really hard up. And so, yeah, I do get some. I keep myself alive. I couldn't live off of it. Right. But I keep myself going.
I'm a big fan of doing fundraisers or special events to pay for people like you to come and talk to kids. It's so worth it.
I hope that my time with them becomes something that's very memorable, and they won't just remember this, but they'll remember the words and what we're trying to teach the kids. Yeah. Because the lives that these children would have had back then in the Gold Rush and growing up in that era is so vastly different than what they have today. Those kids could survive when they were 7 and 8 years old on their own. Today, the kids don't know which side of the bread to butter unless there's an app to tell them how to do it.
Seriously. I know.
So it's very different.
Yeah, and is that what your message is when you go to talk to the kids, the differences between then and now, or is it about?
Yes, in a way. In a way. That's kind of in the background, the staging. When I go into a classroom, I'll bring in my telling box, and my telling box is full of all kinds of things that they would have experienced had they been living back in the 1850s. So we have all kinds of games, which is always a huge attraction for the kids. Yeah. I have lemon verbena, because if you were a proper lady and you wanted to impress the man of your heart, you might use lemon verbena toilet water, which is very different than the perfumes you have today. Yeah. Or you might take a sprig of rosemary and tuck it inside your camisole.
Oh my goodness.
But little things like that, very different than what the kids, have today.
Yeah. Oh, with such few baths and things that they took back then, I can't imagine a little sprig of rosemary doing much good.
Well, it helped. Or chewing them in, but we have a tendency to think that the people back then didn't know about cleanliness. Right. When they probably took a bath once a week because water was always precious, just like we experience here, water is precious. But they weren't dirty in the same fashion that we think about people not bathing for a week. They must be just filthy.
Right.
You know, it's just, there was a different standard back then.
True.
A different standard. So, and the girls, they would have just a couple of day dresses, but they would have the underclothing, you know, and you would change the underclothing, but you may not be changing your day dress every day. You had an apron over the top to help keep it clean.
Okay.
The young girls would wear the bonnet, not just to protect their eyes from the sun, but also to keep the dust and dirt out of their hair.
Oh,
so you didn't wear your hair. Wash your hair every day.
Yeah.
And their hair would be long, it would be tied up, or it would be caught up in braids.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just fashion, it was function.
Everything had a purpose.
Everything had a purpose.
Golly, we are so spoiled, aren't we? Do you know, if I'm at home not feeling well or something and I hadn't taken a shower and someone knocks on the door, I pretend I'm not home. Because I don't open the door if I hadn't showered.
There's an account that I came across, and it was people on the trail going to Oregon, not California. At Fort Hall, they would make the decision whether they were going to go up into Oregon or if they were going to continue on to California. They said that if you were adventuresome, you would go to California because that was the big unknown. If you were just wanting to get there, you would go to Oregon. But there's an account of some of the Native Americans who had encountered these wagon trains and thought that the white people stunk.
Really?
And they probably, in fact, did because they didn't know where all these water holes were and where they could do regular bathing. And there were an awful lot of important things they had to deal with besides just bathing.
Sure.
You know, on this trek.
Gosh, strong people.
They were strong people. They were very strong people.
Oh my gosh. I would be like, you go and come back and get me later. After you've settled and everything, come get me.
My husband's family all come from Northern California up in the Siskiyous. They were among the first miners up into that area.
Cool.
Now, my mother-in-law was born in 1910, and she talks about when she was 5 years old, she would go every evening to her uncle's house and feed the cats, and she had to walk 5 miles and through. She always talked about having to run through the cemetery because it would scare her at night. We wouldn't dream of having a child walk on their own 2 blocks at 5 years old.
No.
But for her, it was nothing. It's just what was done.
That's incredible.
Very different. Very different.
Yeah. So strong. I don't know. I'm very impressed by those people. They're so different than we are.
They're so different than we were. They were able to survive because survival was something that was always in front of them.
Right.
It wasn't the latest fashion or keeping up with the Joneses. I'm sure that in some parts of these societies that was important, but survival for the bulk of the people was what was important.
Yeah. God, we're lucky.
Yes, we are.
We're so lucky.
We're very lucky for them. And I think it's important for us to know what their lives were like so we can appreciate what we have.
Yeah. It's weird how it wasn't really all that long ago in history. It feels like a million years ago, but it wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't that long ago. Yeah. You look back at what our parents knew and what they were able to survive, and our grandparents, that's just 2 generations.
Right.
That's really
It's
nothing.
crazy, huh?
I know, it is.
You had mentioned a minute ago about how the clothes all had a purpose, or I guess everything had a double purpose. The hat you're wearing right now, would that have a purpose? The way it's bendable and flexible?
Yes. And the hat had the brim tipped up like this because we would say today that time is money. So if I'm working my gold pan down there in the creek or my long tom, whatever it is, I want to use every available moment of daylight. I don't want the shadow of my hat brim falling in my pan.
Oh.
I also want to be able to just very easily lift my eyes up and see what might be across the creek, whether it's a 2-legged critter or a 4-legged critter that might bring harm to me. So they would just tip the hat up.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
Yeah, Yeah.
I just thought it
yeah.
was super cute.
Well, it was later picked up in some of the sideshows, and people think that this style of wearing your hat was born in some of these sideshows, and it was never real. But we have a picture of my husband's great-great-grandfather building this bridge across the Scott River, and two of the guys have got their hats tipped straight up
That is
in the
so
front.
neat.
I know, it's really,
It makes
really
so
neat.
much sense when
It
you
does make
explain
sense.
it.
It does make sense, yeah.
Tell me now about this scarf that you have on. It doesn't look like it would warm your neck much.
Well, everything a miner wore was needful. That's
Yeah.
what we called it. So a scarf this size, you could use it for a sling. You could use it to wash yourself. You could use it to put over the eyes of your mule if you wanted to get them someplace where you wanted them. You used it for anything that you needed to use it for. It made a great bandage.
That's a great idea.
It is a great idea. And it was big like this because you used it for everything under the sun.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then what do you have underneath it? I see beads.
This is my medicine bag. You'd have to read my story to find out why I have this, but many of them carried a medicine bag, and it carried in it things that were not necessarily medicine all the time, but things that made you feel good, that brought you happiness. Like
drugs,
maybe a particular picture, maybe a pebble, maybe a memory of something.
I thought you
Or it
were
could be-
talking like hallucinogenics or something, things that made you feel
they
good.
might have done that too, but I don't think so.
Okay. Nice things, nice things.
Nice things, and this is a possibles bag.
Possibles.
And it was called a possibles bag because it was possible to put anything in your possibles bag.
Nice.
Most of the time, by the time a miner got a pair of pants, the pockets were worn out. Nothing was ever thrown away. So we always say that your clothes came from people that didn't need them anymore, which of course would be somebody who had passed on.
Okay.
And so by the time you got the pants, the pockets would be worn out. So you had to have a possibles bag to carry everything that you needed to carry.
Right.
And you could use it for a game bag. You could use it to carry your gold in, but you usually had your own gold pouch down here.
Look at that.
Gold pouch. And then, so you don't get hungry, you got your bag of beans.
Wow.
Now, they were just plain old dried beans. They could be red beans or white beans or spotted beans or black beans, but you knew how to cook them. You would never go hungry. Not like the beans you find today, but they would get you by.
Right.
So everything had a purpose.
Can I feel that gold bag? Okay. It looks so sturdy. I mean, it's so thick and heavy.
Yes, made from usually deer skin.
Okay.
But it could be made from any kind of hide.
Right. Is that what that is? It's
This one is
so
deer skin.
thick.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's soft too.
And it's soft.
I like it.
A lot of work, a lot of wear.
Oh yeah, because you know what you're doing. Yeah, and so you have your cup.
Yes, I can carry water in this. I can cook in this. I can give old Ruth a drink in it. I can do whatever I needed to do with this.
How cool! And your boots have a built-in knife holder.
Yeah, I call that old Jonathan. That's for cooking
Jonathan.
and cleaning and scraping and cutting. I can cut your hair. I can skin a rabbit. Whatever you got a need for, I can use it to protect myself too.
That's great.
It was needful.
I can't think of anything you're missing. You have layers on to keep
A
you warm.
fatter gold pouch.
You have a fatter gold pouch. Oh my goodness, this is really cool. Really good. Did you make these clothes yourself?
Some of them, yes. Some of them, no. Some of them passed on. Some were given to me by people who knew what I was doing and wanted to give me a hand.
I was looking at your vest with the knots here. It looks handmade. It's really cool. Yeah. That's so
I
neat.
didn't. I had help doing this.
Okay. Okay. So out of all the characters you could have invented, how did you come up with Hardluck Lin?
I grew up on Westerns back in Minnesota.
Yeah.
The Roy Rogers, the Gene Autry, all of that era, that time was fascinating to me. When I started teaching school, the literature of the American West was finally being recognized. You didn't have to hide Zane Grey inside a magazine because people would say you're reading a dime novel that wasn't worth anything. It was finally coming to its own and being recognized. So I just devoured this. Then, when we moved up here to Twainhart, I'm in the middle of the gold rush. How exciting is that? Coupled with the fact that when I met my husband and then found out that her family were the earliest gold miners into the Siskiyous, and she had wonderful stories. She had artifacts. She had all these pictures of all these people. I mean, I just felt like a kid in a candy store.
It blossomed, huh?
It was wonderful. It's like you couldn't get enough information because it was all there, and it felt firsthand.
Right.
And when I retired, had to find something else to do. My son our son was just going into 7th grade. So beyond just working with him as a stay-at-home mom now, wanting something else to do, and I got involved with Mother Lode history. And then got asked to start doing programs, giving programs for kids and doing the teaching. And it just kind of gathered a life of its own and grew.
So Hardluck Lin is not an actual person from long ago. Your total invention.
A total invention based upon what I've read of other people.
Okay.
And I never give up my identity, whether I'm a man or a woman, because in the gold rush, I would not have done that. I would have tried to portray myself as just one of many people in this fabric of society that came out here to find gold. And I did that for my own protection.
Wow.
And so talk a little bit illiterate, be a little bit dirty, look like everybody else.
Yeah.
People weren't worried about making a fashion statement. They were worried about survival. So it was very easy to fade into the fabric of everyone around you.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
It was very interesting. It was a very interesting time. It was a very hard time.
Yeah.
So when I'm telling the stories, I have to be very specific about the purpose in the story that I'm telling. There has to be a reason for that story, especially when you're dealing with kids.
Yeah. No, I'm thinking of back then, a person like Hardluck Lin, about how it seems lonely to me. Not having a relationship or a husband and a home and a family.
Probably, but for Hardluck, she had a purpose. And it was just going to be this interim of time in her mind when this was going to take place and why she was coming.
Is that what this book is about?
This book is about the story of Hardluck and how she came to be. Because as she would tell you, as Hardluck Lin would tell you, I didn't just get hatched that way. There's a story there.
That is... So let me look at this while you're talking.
So this is
go ahead.
This is the story of how she came to be out in the gold rush. And I believe that it's a story that is not so far-fetched that it isn't credible, it isn't believable. We don't know how many women disguised themselves and came out here. We know that they did it in the Civil War.
Yeah.
There was nobody out here taking names and checking to see if you were a man or a woman.
Gosh.
Everybody was busy doing their own thing, and we had a very fluid society. And you're coming into camp when you need supplies. Other than that, you're out on your own. And most of the people that came out here for the gold rush came out here thinking, I'm only going to be here a short amount of time. I will accomplish my purpose, and then I'm going back to wherever my back might be.
Because I thought the gold was just laying on top of the ground practically, right?
They did.
Pick it up and get rich and go home.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There were fantastic stories that were coming back east.
Right.
And now, Hardluck does not come out here specifically for the gold. Life, happenstance, her circumstances brought her out here. And once she was out here, she realized there's an opportunity for me to get rich fast. And she went to the gold fields.
Okay. Yeah. Is this you?
Yes.
No, it is not.
Yes.
I've only seen you like this. When you buy this book, look at that. Beautiful. You're beautiful now. Your eyes are so gorgeous, but I don't know if I'd recognize you without you.
Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Oh, well, you are so your character when you're dressed like this, and you do a great job of that. So this is written as Hardluck Lin would tell her story.
Yes.
Yes.
And the story of how she came out, and it's just 2 years of the gold rush. So it was wonderful to be able to incorporate some of the history of the gold rush into this story.
Right.
So that it's a teaching tool as well as entertainment.
Yeah. What age would you think this, just adults, or is it appropriate for
Probably
teens?
junior high.
Okay.
Reading levels vary today, but probably junior high and on up.
And where can people find this? I want to make sure. we get it
Amazon.
there? Okay.
From me, a lot of the museums have got it. I don't know about the Calaveras one. I know that the one in Tuolumne does,
Okay.
down on Bradford Street, or from me.
Oh, from you. Do you have a website?
Yes.
What is it?
Hardlucklin.com.
Oh, that's easy.
Yes.
Okay. And it is Lynn.
Lin.
Lin. Hardluck Lin, Lin.
Right.
Okay, .com. That is great. So how long did it take you to write this? This is a lot of work.
Probably 3 years.
Oh.
But there's a bit of a story because I'm kind of a control freak, so I figured that I knew where this story was supposed to go, and I own the computer,
Yeah.
and I pay the electric bill, and it shall go where I want it to go. And I just kept getting stuck.
Oh.
And I ended up having to have major surgery on my foot. So it was more extensive than they thought. I'm laid up on the couch for seemed like years, but it wasn't. It was just a
Right.
couple of weeks, but it ended up being 3 months. So we got a laptop,
man.
and now I'm on the couch. I can't get upstairs to where all my research is, so I just let go
Yeah.
and let the story tell itself. And it was finished in 5 months.
Really?
Yeah, it was
That's
amazing.
incredible.
Just letting it go and let it tell itself.
Oh, do you have dreams as her? Is that where you
I
get your
would wake
ideas
up
from?
with like, oh, that's what happens next. That's what, because sometimes I was surprised by where the story
Right.
wanted to go.
I wonder about that with people who are other people who have a alter life as someone else. How that
Keep
works?
that little notepad right by your bed, so when you wake up in
Yeah.
the middle of the night, you can make a note to yourself, because you won't remember it in the morning.
No, for sure. And how is your husband with all of this? He seems so
Patient.
supportive.
Patient.
Yeah, nice.
I don't think that those wedding vows included months at the computer.
Right. Book writing, play acting, all the different things that you do.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about being anyone else, another character?
I do one other character once a year. Stories in Stone is put on by the Friends of Columbia State Historic Park. And Stories in Stone is a wonderful event that happens every fall at the cemetery. And we interpret individual people that are buried in that cemetery.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
It's wonderful. It's a fundraiser for the state park.
Yeah.
But the guests will gather at the school at dusk, and then they're brought by lantern holders that are costumed.
Yeah.
And they're taken to the various grave sites. And they announce the name of the individual and the date that they died, and we emerge out of the darkness and interpret their story. And, maybe a 5-minute vignette. It just depends upon that person's story.
Do you all actually look into that person's history, or you just
Yes.
sort of make up what
No,
you imagine?
we want it to be as accurate as we possibly can.
What months do they do this?
They do it the end of September and the first weekend in October, those 2 weekends.
I want to do that.
It's a wonderful event, and it helps to keep the history alive. And we talked earlier about how incredibly courageous these people were.
Yeah.
Well, some of these stories are sad, some of them are funny, but they're all courageous.
Yes, they are.
The woman that I portray is Abby Starbird, and she died of consumption 10 days after her baby was born.
What is that?
Consumption today would be called tuberculosis.
Okay.
Now, back then, the idea that you have TB, you don't know if you're going to live long enough to give your baby birth.
Oh.
And the very act of giving birth was thought to shorten your life that much more.
Oh. Did
So-
it actually, or they just thought that it did?
Well, they didn't expect her to live.
Okay.
But she was able to live 10 more days.
Oh.
So it's a wonderful, wonderful story about this woman.
Wow. And where do you find her story? From old articles or from family members?
I've been very fortunate because I was given the nugget of the story, and we didn't know a whole lot. But since we first started doing, I started doing this person, one of her relatives has come forth and given me all kinds of information about this
wow.
woman. I know.
That is really neat.
Very fortunate.
Was she a girly girl, or did she dress similar to
No,
Hardluck
she
Lin?
was a girly girl. She was
Okay.
a proper lady.
Proper lady.
Yes.
How fun for you.
Yes.
I love the
It's
way
an
you're spending
honor.
your retirement.
One of these days we really need to
Really?
retire.
Really? Oh, gosh. We have like 5 minutes left. Tell me what are your most favorite things that you got to experience as being Hardluck Lin?
I just think various times I'll be telling a story, and then afterwards people will come up to me and say, I remember my grandmother talking about this.
Right.
And just even exploring my husband's families, all of that heritage, all of that history is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And they had incredible insight and foresight because they realized certain things are going to be important down the line.
Right.
When looking through, when my mother-in-law passed on, we had to go through a lot of her stuff and go through her garage. We found some incredible, not just old family photos going back prior to 1850, but we found a newspaper from the week after Abraham Lincoln passed on.
Wow.
And I mean, there were just incredible things that the family had hung on to because they realized that one day they're going to be worth something.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things have been passed on to me now, and I can use them to show the kids, this is what it was like back then.
Yeah.
And that's pretty exciting.
That is so neat. Because back then, people weren't quite like us in this other way also, where we just collect everything, and if we get a storage shed if we have too much stuff to keep our things in. So they were probably very particular about what they were going to keep and what they were going to get rid of, and they just kept the most important things, right?
Well, maybe yes, and we also live in, we seem to have that, I call it a hoarder syndrome, where we keep everything, but we also live in a throwaway society.
Oh, I guess you're right.
And if it isn't brand new, I don't want it. Well, they didn't always have the money for those things. So there are things that have come on down through the family that are really exciting.
Yeah. You are right, because if it came even to the pouch, we have a different one for each season, and then we get rid of it because you don't want to be seen with it again another year.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, you're right. You're right.
It's
They would
exciting.
hold on to things like that also.
I have the family, one of his family's fainting couches. And we're talking fainting couch, and we're talking maybe 1870s.
Whoa!
I mean, think about the people passing this beautiful piece of furniture on down, realizing that it had value instead of just chucking it because we have a new style couch now.
Right. Oh, I'm so glad it's going to someone like you who knows the value in it and respects things like that, and don't just think, this is old, I don't want this anymore. I've seen that even in my work when people are handed things down from other generations, and they're like, I don't want that.
I know, it's sad, isn't it?
Oh, it breaks my heart, yeah.
I had a friend who would go into antique stores, and she'd find these old pictures of people, and she would just collect them for no particular purpose. But when she would meet somebody who said, I wish I knew who my ancestors were, she would go into the closet, bring some of these pictures out and say, here, these people need to be loved.
Oh, that's so cool.
I know. Isn't that that's a neat idea, huh?
That is so cool. I like the way you think, and I like your spirit, and I love what you're doing. It's really neat.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And it's a way to educate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the whole goal.
Edutainment. Is that what you called it?
That's what it's called.
I love it.
Yes,
Thank you
it is
for
exciting.
doing that.
Thank you for having me.
I want to come out and see you in your other character also. So September, October.
Yes, and it'll be on the website for the Friends of Columbia State Historic Park. It's usually the last weekend in September and the first weekend in October.
Perfect.
And my other events are on my website, and if it's private, it involves a school, so it's just listed as private. But if it's a public one, in the middle of March, I'm doing the Motherlode Gold and Gem Show in Turlock, and I'll be doing some storytelling back there.
Awesome.
As well as filling this great big display case full of family artifacts.
Perfect.
I know, it'll be fun.
Oh, everybody, check out her website. Go and see her in person when you get a chance. She's someone that you will not forget. And look for this book on Amazon or in the local museums, different stores around here. We need to get it every place. This is awesome, incredible. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time on Tammy's Window on Calaveras.